Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Kelly Dominguez here with the Siren and the Pirate handmade jewelry, and today we're going to make this set of earrings. So I took a little poll on the Instagram, and this is the one y'all picked, so we're going to learn how to do this. So today we are going to need 20 gauge wire and 28 gauge wire. I purchased my copper wire from Rio Grande. And what else? If you've got 16 gauge wire, on this first pair I did use 16 gauge on this jump ring, but you could also just use your 20 gauge wire, no problem. The ear wires are made of 20 gauge. The weaving here is the 28 gauge wire, and then you will need a few beads of your choice. I am using 4mm beads, but you could choose the size and color and everything that you would like. They'll just turn out looking a little different, and that's okay. So let's go ahead and get started. You're going to need 2 pieces of 20 gauge wire. I've cut them to about 10 inches in length. And the trick with earrings, because earrings can be tricky to get them looking exactly alike and the same size and all of that. So the trick to making earrings is do something on one pair and then do the same thing on the other pair and kind of move in steps at the same time. So you don't want to do one earring and then do another one. They always turn out a little bit more even if you kind of do one step on one and then do it on the other. So that's what we're going to do today. So with this first pair, we're going to try to put the weave somewhat in the center of the wires. So I would say come in from the left side to about the 3.5 inch mark, and then we're going to weave for about 2.5 inches. So that's going to bring us to the 6 inch mark. So your weave will be right here, and then you'll have these pieces left open for all the other fun things we're going to do with the wire. Doing a 3-3 weave. So I have done this weave in other tutorials as well. It's one I use quite a lot, so I'll kind of give you the basics here. So if you're holding your 2 wires, if you're right-handed, hold them with your left hand, and vice versa. If you're left-handed, sorry, you're gonna have to flip this unless you can work with your right hand. So you're gonna take the tail of the 28 gauge wire and place it on the back side of the wires and pinch it with your index finger and your thumb. Now make sure your wires are separated over here. First thing we're going to do is come around the bottom wire and secure that weaving wire by coiling around to, let's go ahead and do our 3. Now your wires might be a little spaced out, so use your thumbs and squish everything together so that the wires line up side by side. They're not overlapping and there's no spaces in between them. This tail you want to keep for now because it's going to allow you to keep the weaving wire secure as you get your weave started. Now we're going to take the weaving wire and we're going to go around both of the wires 3 times. 1, 2, and 3. Again, they're spaced out, so we go in after every 3 sets or 3 coils and squish them. So 3 on the bottom, 3 over both. That's the pattern we're going to repeat. So make sure over here on the side your wires don't get crisscrossed. There should always be a little mouth over here. Over here you want to keep these wires as close together as possible. That way your wires don't, if your wires spread out, your weave is going to be all different sizes, and then eventually these are all going to get pulled together and your weave will look really messy. So try to keep these wires close together over here and then a mouth at the end. So to go back over the bottom wire, we're going to lift up to pull this weaving wire snug against the bottom side of the wire. go between the wires, use your thumb or your index finger, whichever is more comfortable, push that wire all the way in. Same thing, lift first, always make sure you lift, go between, push in, lift, go between, and then push in. Now you've got your 3 wires around the bottom. We'll go over both of the wires now. 1, 2, and 3. Push together. Perfect. And you can see I'm working off the spool, which I don't really have a lot of room here because of the tripod, so I'm getting my wires kind of kinked up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off maybe like, I would say 3.5 to, let's go with 4 feet of your 28 gauge wire to make sure you have enough to get through the 2.5 inches of weave that you'll need. And then that way this won't kink up on you. And if it does, because this happens a lot, you'll have to unwind it very carefully. Let it fall off to the side. If you ever get a kink in it, you need to always be watching your wire, because if you get a tight kink, it is really unstable then. When you go to try to weave it, it's probably going to break. So you need to catch those and release them as soon as possible. So just pay attention to your extra wire. All right, so we've got our 3, 3, 3, 3. We're going to continue with this weave for about 2.5 inches, and you're going to do this on this one and on this one before moving on to the next step. So I will work on the weaves for both of them. You do the same thing, and then we will come back and move on to the next step. Okay, if you have finished your weave on both of the wires, we'll go ahead and get started with the next step. So you can hold them up and just make sure that they're about the same length. I've already trimmed the tails off of this one, so make sure you do that to trim the tails. You want to make sure that you've ended with a single wire coil just around one wire. You don't want to end with the double wire wrap, because it can more easily come undone. So make sure you finish, 1, 2, 3 coils around a single wire. And then use your cutting tool. You're going to use the flush side, which is the flat side, to get right up against the base wire, trim them off. And we're using the flush side because that will give you a nice straight cut, clean cut. And then if there's any wire that is still sticking up, you just go in and make sure it's smashed down. It's not sticking up. All right, so typically earrings are mirror images of each other, so that's another challenge we run into. It's really good to practice though. So we have to keep that in mind, that as we do something on one, we have to do it on the other, but we have to do it in the opposite direction. So let's see how good I'm going to be today at reconstructing the shape of these. All right, so let's start with the right one. So we're going to go to the bottom of the weave, and we're going to make a counterclockwise loop at the bottom. So we're making this portion here. So just start to shape it around. And then we're going to start to curve this in. And then bending it in the opposite direction. So just little pushes. If you're working with copper wire, this is super easy to mold. If you're working with other wires, you might have to use more pressure or some tools. So you're starting to get this shape going on. Now here, I think I've made the loop a little big, so all I'm gonna do is go in, and you can either use your fingers, or maybe we'll use this wire, we'll use these pliers. To come in, and look, there's no correct size. Maybe I'll make these a little bit bigger this time. All right, so that's all we're gonna do on that one. Now we're gonna move over to your other wire, and what we'll have to do now is start from the bottom, but make a clockwise loop. So now we're turning opposite direction. Until the weaving wire meets the other weave. And then what you can do is just check it. Are we the same size? Yeah, I think so. It's about even. And then same thing here, start to bend this around. So we're starting to get that S shape going on. All right. So now we're going to carefully start to shape these a little bit more. We need a portion of this weave to come up and be this bail. So let's come in a little bit more, because what we want is for this to line up with the top here. So start to bring it in more, like so. And then here, you're gonna use, I use my thumb, just the nail, wherever I want the wire to bend upward. I'm gonna put my nail in that position, hold the bottom portion of the wire, and then curve it up. So now we have this straight up and down portion, and then do the exact same thing on the other side. You do something on one, immediately do it on the other side. As best you can. One thing I continuously need to work on is symmetry. It's like I cannot do the same thing twice if my life depended on it. But I've been doing a lot more pieces with symmetry, and I'm finding that once you start to get better at it, man, it's a lot of fun, and you can make beautiful pieces. All right, so something like that. Let's see. It'd be hard to compare these. Oh yeah, we can put them like that. Oh hey, maybe we could have just bent them like this and then shaped them at the same time. Well, didn't we learn something along the way today? So you could have just put these back to back, shape them, shape them, shape them. Let's see, you learn as you go. Even I'm learning as I go. How about that? And you know what? I might give myself a little bit more room here, so I have more of the bail. Cool. Ta-da. Now let's separate them. For the next part, you could either use bail making pliers or just some round nose pliers. If you don't have either one of those, you could find like a pencil or just something round to wrap this top over to give you the circle shape that you need. So I'm going to use my bail pliers. I'm going to use the second from the smallest. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a counter bend in this first so that the loop, well, you'll see here. It's going to be easier to show you like this. So a little counter bend coming forward, and then take your wires and wrap it around and down. And we're going to separate these wires so they're coming forward. We'll leave this one down for now until we deal with these guys and get them out of the way. So that counter bend allowed the circle to be directly over the center of the earring instead of behind it. So we do one thing on one, we do the same thing on the other side. Counter bend, pull it around, separate your wires. Oh crap, I did this the wrong way. Oh shoot. Okay, I thought about just editing that whole portion out so it didn't look like I messed up. But I think it's better you see how you can fix mistakes like that. So if I had done it this way, they're not going to be opposite of one another. They're going to be the same. So all I'll do is come in, bring the wires back to where they were, try to do this in as few of movements as possible. And I like to take a flat pliers and just squeeze it. Okay, so we're right back to where we started. We're gonna flip that over because we need to make sure it's the opposite of this one. And now we're gonna start again. Bend that forward. And come around. So it's okay, like if you make a move and you realize it's wrong, it's still fixable. You don't ever have to give up on anything. We can fix it, we can adjust it, and come right back in. Okay, so we're back on track. Next thing we're gonna do is work on this portion here, and as you can see, this area down here, I wanted to cover that in some single coil wires before I added in the beads. So we're going to take some of the weaving wire that we had originally trimmed off. Now, you probably could have just left this attached and used it on the next portion. I cut it off, so maybe it was poor planning, but also sometimes it can be easier just to trim things away and kind of clean it up, shape it, and then go back in and add in the wire. Either way, you can just add it right back in. So we're going to be putting a single coil around this top wire. So just take the weaving wire, go behind the top one with a little tail you can hold on to. And just start to coil around the top wire. And depending on where you want your beads to start, go ahead and kind of keep pushing this down if you can't. I don't really want to see a gap in here, so you could lift that away from each other and then just kind of push it all the way in. Okay, let's do this. A few more times now, depending on the shape that your wire came out in. I'd say I did like, how many did I do? Just enough to get that wire across the other weave, maybe a few coils more. All right, so I've just crossed over and gone up a little bit more. And then what do? We do the same thing on the other side. All right, so the single coil is done. I think I ended up doing about 14 wraps on each side. And now we're gonna put the beads on. So with these wires, we'll start to kind of curve them up. And on that top wire, we're gonna put, I think I used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the 4mm beads. Four, 5. Cool, cool. Same thing on the other one. Just start to curve that first. All right, now this back wire here, let's get him out of the way. So kind of bring him up and around so that both of these wires are pointing forward. And just so that they're not in our working space right now, let's curve them up. There we go. And now both of these wires, the bead and the extra wire, we're going to shape around. Sorry. So we have this teardrop shape. Now I noticed this is kind of this way, so I'm going to go in and just even it out. Do the same thing on the other one. That wire out of the way, turn them upwards, and then begin to shape them over. All right, now these are a little bit bigger than the original pair that I have. I made them more slender, so you can choose whether you want them more open like this, or if you want to bring that in more. So I'm gonna go off of where the bead meets the weaving wire. And that's where I'm gonna wrap my 2 wires around. So just make sure that they meet the wire here. Hold them in place, then take these 2 wires, wrap them around the back side. Thing over here where the wires meet, wrap them around. Okay, now we have approximately the same shape. You can go in, adjust, especially if you're using the copper. It's going to be so easy to mold them, except now our top is looking a little funky. So let's fix that. But I think otherwise the shape and size is pretty similar. All right, let's actually, before we fix the top, we can trim off these wires that we wrapped around the back side. So come in here with your flush side and we're gonna trim them off. I like to trim them right over the top of the weave because now we're going to take our pliers and kind of crimp them or squish them down so that they're hooked on to that weaving wire. And then they're nice and secure. Same thing over here. Okay. Now the top. It's looking a little weird. We need to even it out again. So let's do this. Let's unfold these a little bit. And then where this top wire meets the weave, maybe you could use your fingers even, or you could use your pliers. But we're gonna bend it up from there. And then straight up. We'll fix this in a minute, but now we've got that wire bent straight up and now it's all hanging straight down and it's nice and even. Do that on the other one too. Where the wires meet, curve it up. And then even it out. We're gonna end up making the bail larger now, so we'll undo these wires. What I've decided to do is kind of start over with this top. So we're gonna bend it back up, straighten it out, and kind of begin again. That is okay to do. Let's kind of get back to a square one. And that might kind of mess up your weave a little bit. You can always try to go in there and compress it again. Oh boy. I don't know if this is like the best thought out tutorial, but it's definitely like this is what I actually go through when I'm designing a piece or working. You know, normally tutorials are much more thought out than this. This is more of like a troubleshooting tutorial. I'm sure you guys are all doing wonderful though. All right, so we're back to square one. Now we can finish this up a little nicer. Do the same thing we did before, but I'm gonna put the counter bend right above where the wires crisscross. And then bend it around and bring it forward. Something like that. I'd say that looks okay now. All right, now for these funky little things along the side. So all I've done here, actually you can see that these two are not exactly similar. But I think that's okay because, you know, when you're wearing a pair of earrings, you're not, I mean, they're on opposite sides of someone's head. So you're never really gonna see like subtle things like that are different. At least that's what I think. What I tell myself to feel better. So all I'm gonna do is bring one of the wires across and I just kind of wave the wire back and forth, putting in bends. I think it kind of looks like a piece of hair like falling in front of someone's face. Just kind of have fun with this, bending the wire in opposite directions down the side and then bring it along the back side. And you can always go in afterwards and kind of bend the wires. We're gonna create like a little layering effect with everything here. So now this one, I'm gonna do kind of the same thing. Maybe I'll even go in the opposite wave direction. So you kind of get this crisscrossing braid looking thing. Ta-da. And then also around the back side. Oh, that looks cool. I'm happy with that. Let's do the same thing on the other one. But now we're going opposite direction. So I bring this one across. Oh, this part's kind of fun. It's very soothing. Around the backside. So it's already different than the other one. That's okay. I'm going to leave it. Around the backside. Also cool, not exactly the same. That's okay. I mean, I could go in and really try to get these similar. It is possible, it's doable. Maybe some of you will be able to work with that, but I'm gonna leave it. All right, now with these last two wires, we bring them around the front. We're gonna put swirlies on both of them to cover up that negative space. So we want to trim these at a similar length. Let's just pick a length. One could be a little bit longer than the other. You can really play with this part. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Let's see. Guess and go. That's always my motto. Guess and go. All right. Now we'll start with the smaller one on the bottom. Use your round nose pliers. Start to curl it in and around. And then the top one. We're gonna layer it on top of each other. Oops, I marred the wire a little bit. It's okay. You can just kind of squish everything down so it sits nice. That one ended up being a little bit bigger or longer. So what you can always do is go in and trim off the center of it if you've already started to curl it. Trim it off and then shrink it up. And then squish. For a minute, I was like, did I do it wrong again? All right, so now we have our earrings. I'm sorry, I'm losing it. I hope you guys have stuck with me. Kudos to you if you have. Let's do the earring wire part. With this pair, instead of doing the 16 gauge, I'm just going to use 20 gauge wire, and I'm going to use the extra pieces that I trimmed off from the earring to make my jump ring. And I'm going to make the jump ring this size. So I'll take the wire and I'll just start to coil it around. We'll do a few of them so we get a few rings. So this is what you have. Then use your cutting tool. Ooh, there we go. This is what you have, and then where this one meets the other wire, it's where you're going to make your next cut. And you end up with a little jump ring. You just need 2 of them, so go do that one more time. Oops. All right, and now the ear wires. Fast way you can make an identical pair of like French hook ear wires. So I've got about, I don't know, like 3 inches or so of 20 gauge wire. And I'm going to take them together, use your round nose or bail pliers, create a little hook at one end. I do have another tutorial like on this. It's just like a 3-minute fast tutorial if you want more in-depth. I'm just going to kind of show you. Maybe I'll use the bigger. Bend them at the same time, come around, bend. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on these, just a quick show. Because if you have a pair of ear wires, you can use those instead. But if you want to know how to make your own, I do have a tutorial on that. What I'll probably do, I won't do it right now, but I'll do it later, is I'll go in and I'll hammer these down to kind of flatten them out and make them stronger. But for now, we'll do this. They're on. Ooh, guys, we did it. And you know what? I think they turned out, for all my guesswork, they turned out very similar to the first pair. I'm really happy with that. Now, you guys got kind of a real-time look at, you know, what can go wrong. Sometimes you do something and you got to go back and fix it. And sorry for a tutorial, I think it should be a little bit more thought out. So that's on me. But it also just lets you know that, you know, you can fix things and it doesn't have to be perfect, and everyone else goes through that too. I mean, sometimes when you watch tutorials, they're like, oh, they never make a mistake. It's like they always know what to do ahead of time, and that's not the case. It's a lot of trial and error and going back and fixing things. And I promise for the next tutorial, I'll have it a little bit more planned out for you, but I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for sticking with me, and be sure to tag me in your photos on Instagram at the Siren and the Pirate. If you do these earrings, I would love to see how they turned out. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you're all staying well. We'll see you on the next video.